everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm responding to a comment from Goblin 2004, and it has led me to more interesting things about temples, about arcades, which an arcade is a series of arches in architecture. It's been interesting me for a long time, as many of you know, since we've been talking about the BYU Jerusalem Center and how it's most likely going to become a temple in the future. At least that's the view that I hold. And then we have the LDS Visitor Center in Independence, Missouri, which also has the same features to it. And we've looked at the Brazil Temple, which is the capital of Brazil, and it has a similar aesthetic to it with arcades. And it's just been like this ongoing thing. You know, we've talked about the new church symbol and how it is a Roman arch. It's meant to represent the tomb when Christ was resurrected, but the actual garden tomb, that is like the most likely place where the tomb is located, is actually a rectangle. So we've gone through, we've seen how the new church symbol actually fits perfectly in the doorway of the Salt Lake Temple, and I believe that that's actually the inspiration. That shape is the inspiration for the new church symbol. I think there's like multiple things that influenced it, but anyway, I came across something really interesting. Okay, so I'll show you my train of thought. This is how it went. I got this comment from Goblin 2004. The St. George Temple is supposed to be completely renovated by November of this year. The new Red Cliffs, Utah Temple will be complete later next year. Yes, the area is growing at a rather fast pace. I do live in St. George, and in the last 11 years, it has grown a lot. Also, there are a couple arches on the Red Cliffs, Utah Temple. The center arch on the St. George Temple is where it says "Holiness to the Lord." Okay, so I wanted to just take a look at the Red Cliffs, Utah Temple, just to see what he's talking about. So I went over here to churchofjesuschristtemples.org. It's not a church website, it's a private website, but it's a very good resource for information about temples. And I pulled up the Red Cliffs, Utah Temple, and yep, sure enough, right on the front of it, you actually have three rather prominent Roman arches here, and then up here in the spire, and then even higher up, a hollow spire with Roman arches. So, you know, I thought that was pretty neat, and thank you, Goblin 2004, for pointing that out. And someone on my what's it called, Instagram, I think her name is Jenica Weeks. I'm sorry if I got it wrong, but she pointed out that the Bountiful Utah Temple, let me pull it up. Bountiful Utah Temple. This is actually the temple that I got sealed in. I'm married and sealed. It has an arcade right here. It's basically the kind of like the portico area for the temple. I'll pull up this old rendering, and you can see, yeah, just like a big old arcade right here in the front. The rest of this looks a little bit different, actually. So this is like an old rendering. But anyway, you know, you can see here what it looks like. You see the arcade down here. Okay, so this got me to thinking. You know, I served in Madrid, or in Spain, for my mission, and I went to the Madrid MTC for a little while, and I remember that the Madrid temple has a Roman arch, although there's not a picture here. But on the side of the temple, there's like a fountain, and then there's like a Roman arch over there. So I can't show you here, though. Okay, so this kind of got me to thinking, like, okay, it's not like it's too uncommon to see Roman arches. What is more uncommon is to see like a full arcade, and then on top of that, to have an arcade that's hollow and kind of acts more as like a portico, which is basically you walk through the arches, you're not in the building yet. Usually porticos, from my understanding, that's the definition of a portico, is like the area where you actually enter the building, but there's like a covering with either columns or arches. So we've talked about the BYU Jerusalem Center, right? Here's the logo. The logo is an arcade, right? This is kind of like a simplified top of the BYU Jerusalem Center. And what's more, a little bit more rare, is when you have an arcade going around the entire building, and that's kind of that's like the main defining characteristic of the architecture of the BYU Jerusalem Center, as well as the Independence Visitor Center, which is slated to become a temple in the future, according to Alvin R. Dyer in his diary. So, I got to thinking, has there been more arches incorporated into temples since the BYU Jerusalem Center? Since the BYU Jerusalem Center, has there been more? And I'll show you what I found. It's interesting. So first, let's look at the Independence Temple, the very first, or sorry, not Independence, the Kirtland Temple, the very first temple of this dispensation. And it doesn't really have Roman arches. It does have kind of like these arches for windows, but they're pointed at the top, so I wouldn't say that that really counts. On the front, yes, it has doors. The two doors are Roman arches, as well as this window right here. So, okay, so the Kirtland Temple has it on the front. Okay, let's look at the Nauvoo Temple. I've pointed this out in a recent video. The Nauvoo Temple has a ton. It's all around. It's all around, and in the front, you can't see it too well right here, but in the front, where you go to the entrance, there's a portico, and there's these three big Roman arches that you pass through to get to the door to the temple. So that's interesting. That's like the first time that you see like the portico / hollow entrance, or however you want to call it. All right, so Nauvoo Temple, right? And then the St. George, Logan, Manti, and Salt Lake temples all have them. These are pioneer era temples, right? Built in the 1800s. You got St. George. We just did a video about that, and that's the one that Goblin 2004 is responding to. Here you have the two, doorways in the front, and then you have just all the arches. The Logan, Utah temple, very similar. You see all the Roman arches there. And then the Manti temple, the same thing. A bunch of arches all over the place. And then the Salt Lake temple, the Salt Lake temple, all over it. It is almost like nothing but arches and circular windows, right? And then what we were talking about recently is how the two north buildings between the Salt Lake Temple and the Conference Center that are on Temple Square, they have been made to have arches as well. Not so much the southern buildings, but the two northern buildings, they're very, very archy. Okay. Now look what happens after the Salt Lake Temple. The next temple after that is the Hawaii Temple. The Laie, Hawaii? I don't know how that's pronounced. Now you have something that's just really blocky and very square, like very, very square. You don't see any Roman arches in this temple on the exterior anyway. So you have that. You have an arch here, but it's kind of pointy toward the top. But anyway, on the exterior, in any case, there you don't see any Roman arches. Move on to the Cardston, Alberta temple, and as you can see, extremely blocky to the nth degree. It looks like it was made with Legos. Just kidding. I'm not trying to disrespect that temple. I actually like it. I think it's pretty nice. But there are no Roman arches there. Okay, now we're in 1927 with the Mesa, Arizona temple. And no, it's just square. And I miss this temple. It's beautiful. I love the temple grounds. I love the Christmas lights. They do a really good job during Christmas time. But as you can see here in this photo, there's no Roman arches there. Okay, now let's look at 1945, the Idaho Falls, Idaho Temple. And nope, there aren't any here. Now, one thing I would point out, this is kind of off topic, but I think this might be the first time you start to see these kind of like square type designs or symbols. You have these on the Los Angeles Temple, and there's a few others. We're going to come across those here as we look at more temples, but I don't know if anyone knows the story behind this, if there is a story, or if it was just kind of a style of the time. I don't know, but this is a somewhat common feature in the early temples of the church, starting about here with the Idaho Falls Temple. But anyway, as you can see, there's no Roman arches, so there's nothing there. Close out of that. Okay, the Bern, Switzerland Temple, 1955. Nope, it's nothing but just squareness. And then you can see here what I was just talking about. Let's zoom in. You have that symbol here, the square, kind of, I don't know how to describe it, just kind of like square type symbol. Let me know if you know anything about that, if it's a thing, if there's an explanation for it. Okay, now the Los Angeles Temple, 1956. And this is what I was just talking about. You have all the square kind of symbol right there, but no Roman arches. There are no Roman arches on the exterior of this temple. I don't know about the interior, but not on the exterior. Okay, Hamilton, New Zealand Temple, 1958. Okay, let's get a better... And there's that symbol again, the square within a square symbol. But as you can see, there are no Roman arches. It's all just very straight and square. All right, let's see, London, England Temple, 1958. Nope, it's all just straight, square. Is that symbol again? Yeah, it's a little bit different, but this is kind of like the square within a square, and it looks like there's another square within those squares. And there's a bunch of squares up here, but no Roman arches. Now, we're doing this all the way up till 1984. I want to show you what happens, okay? Because plans to build a center for students were announced by the LDS church president, Spencer W. Kimball, in 1979. By 1984, the church had obtained a 49-year lease on the land, and he had begun construction. So the BYU Jerusalem Center, it started being constructed in 1984. So that's the year that we're leading up to here, okay? So let's see, we just did London, right? Okay, Oakland, California Temple. I have never been here, but I've always liked the appearance of it. I think it's pretty. Let's look here. Just a straight-on view. And there are no Roman arches. It looks like it, I don't know, I can't tell if it has that square within a square symbol or not. If you've been to that temple, let me know if it has the square within a square. Okay, let's go to the Ogden. Well, we're not going to go to the Ogden because the pictures that it has on here are going to be at the new Ogden Temple. Let's look at the Provo Temple, because I was looking at this and it still has like... I can't remember what they're going to redo this. It's not going to look like this anymore. They're going to do the same thing that they did to the Ogden Temple, but this is what the Ogden Temple used to look like. A little bit different, but basically the same. So here, no Roman arches. There is over here in the drop-off area, kind of some arches. It looks like. Let me see if I can find a better picture of it. This looks better. I don't know. They kind of like arch, but then they square off at the top, or they're more pointy. So I'm not sure I would really count that as the type of arches that we're looking at. So, okay, Washington, D.C. Temple. In what year is this? 1974, Washington, D.C. Temple. Definitely no Roman arches here. Okay. Sao Paulo, Brazil. This is 1979. And then, okay, here's our first Roman arch feature. And there's a few of them on the temple. Let's see if we can find a good picture of it. Okay, let's look at let's just look at this one. Well, no, I don't want to look at that one. Let's look at this one. That's better. So yeah, you have the hollow top steeple right here with the Roman arches, and then you have this big prominent arch on the front. And then, yeah, so this one has one. Now, it's interesting. Okay, I should have looked this up. When was the Independence LDS Visitor Center built? Because this was around the same time. I think it was actually a little bit earlier. Dedicated the building in 1971. So Sao Paulo came after that. So this is my thought. Okay, my thought, my hypothesis. I'm not saying that it's right, but my thought is that as they were planning out the Independence Visitor Center, knowing that it would probably become part of the temple complex, the 24 temple complex in the future for New Jerusalem, and as they were planning the BYU Jerusalem Center, also probably knowing that it was going to become a temple in the future, I really do think that that's why so much effort went into building the BYU Jerusalem Center. It was almost impossible. Elder Holland himself said that there were like 33 miracles that went into that building being able to be built. There's an incredible story about missionaries way back when missionaries were able to go to, I think it was part of the Turkey mission. But we had missionaries that were in Palestine, in the land of Palestine, and because they died there due to disease, that allowed us to be able to build. It was one of the main things that allowed us to be able to build the BYU Jerusalem Center because they have tombstones there. They were buried there. They have tombstones that have their names and when they died and stuff. The Israeli government recognized it as the church having an official presence in the country before it was a state. I think that's what they were looking for. So my proposal is, I wonder if, as they were planning out the Independence Visitor Center and also the BYU Jerusalem Centers, two world capital cities in the future, and almost certainly going to be temples in the future, I wonder if they decided, you know what, going forward, let's have this feature, this arch feature, because it may have been... if they're meant to be temples in the future, then some of it was probably received through revelation, because that's what the Lord does with, really important temples. I don't know that he does it with every temple, but certainly with the original temples, with the Salt Lake Temple, with the Kirtland Temple. Joseph Smith also said for the temples that would have been in Independence, Missouri, the 24 temple complex. So, being that those are two future sites of world capitals, the Old Jerusalem and the New Jerusalem, maybe the prophet at the time and the apostles, anyone that was privy to it and part of the decision making, maybe they wanted to have future temples incorporate some of that aesthetic in order to, in future generations, like you go to the temple and then it reminds you of New Jerusalem or Jerusalem, because your temple that you go to, your local temple, has just a little bit of that architecture incorporated into it. It could be totally wrong, okay? It could be totally wrong. But that's what I'm basing this little study here off of. So you have the Sao Paulo, Brazil temple that suddenly it has an arch in it. And where was it? This is 1978, so this is after the Independence Center was built. Okay, let's continue. Now we're in 1980 with the Tokyo, Japan temple, and it's square, sharp angles, square, no arches. Okay, Seattle, Washington temple, 1980. Let's take a look at this. Nope, no arches here. Let's see if we can see like a side view. Here's like a back and a side view. No, there's no arches. Okay, the Jordan River Temple. This is where my parents were sealed. Jordan River Temple, and I can't believe that there's something that survived from that time frame that actually still looks good today. Because I would argue that this is still a very, very good looking temple. Anything built in that weird kind of 60s and 70s, I feel like a lot of the stuff doesn't age well, but the Jordan River Temple, it looks super good even today. You wouldn't necessarily associate this architecture with that period, early 80s, late 70s. So, but as you can see, there aren't any Roman arches here. Atlanta, Georgia Temple, 1983. Okay, now we're starting to get close. As you can see here, nope, not at all. Iapia Samoa Temple, 1983. Nope. Now this is like I think this is an updated, because like it got renovated, but as you can see, there aren't any arches. I'm not going to try and find the old picture of it. Nuku'alofa Tonga Temple. So these are like the two basically Nephite temples, because we have Revelation saying that those people are descended from Hagoth, which was a Nephite, the one that sailed for the north. But no, there's no arches here. Santiago, Chile Temple. Let's take a look at this. Nope, very square. Papiet or Papiti, Tahiti? I'm not sure how that's pronounced. Let's go here. Nope, just as square as can be. Mexico City, Mexico. Now that I already know, this one is definitely not. This one is the one that has like kind of like an Aztec kind of aesthetic to it, which I think is pretty cool, and I think it still looks good today. But no Roman arches. Okay, Boise, Idaho Temple. Okay, now this is the first temple. This is the first temple of 1984. I don't know what month the BYU Jerusalem Center started construction. So it could have been before, could have been after, but certainly, you know, at least for the better part of 1984, they probably had the plans for what it was going to look like. So with that in mind, okay, now look at the Boise, Idaho, the Boise, Idaho Temple. Now on the front, it's not so obvious. Let's look at the front here. You do have 4 arches right here, but look at the side. Okay, let me find a picture that shows you the side. All of a sudden, you have a temple that has an arcade, and it's a hollow arcade. It's not completely hollow because there's like there's stones behind the arches that connect it to the building, the main part of the building, but these arches are hollow. Now all of a sudden you have something that resembles this. Let me pull this back up. Now you have a temple that resembles, not exactly, but in one key feature, resembles this right here. And these buildings are built in the same year. Okay, how about the Sydney, Australia temple? Let's take a look at that. No, this looks like the other ones. This one's square. Okay, Manila, Philippines temple. What about this? Okay, now in here, it's a lot more obvious. You actually have a bunch of them. You have 3 on either side right here. You have the ones that go all up the steeples, all the steeples. You have the porticos over here that also have arches. And then you can't see it here. Well, it may not have the arcade on the side. It's hard to say. This is a poor quality photo. It's an old photo. Okay, so Manila, Philippines, yes, it has arches. Let's look at the Dallas, Texas temple. This is also 1984. Okay, I've actually been to the outside of this, but we didn't go inside. We didn't do a session. This is back when I lived in Fort Hood, and I lived on post. So I actually lived at Fort Hood. Okay, let's see. Let's look at the front. No, not really. Nothing here. But let's take a look at the side, because this is the same type of temple, like the same general design as the Boise temple. And whoop, yep, right there. You have that hollow arcade type feature running along the side of the temple. Okay, so here's another one. Now, let's go to Taipei, Taiwan. And this is a similar temple to the Dallas and the Boise temple. And you can already see down here, there's that side feature right here. Let's see if we can get a better look at it, if there is one. Yeah, right here. See, it also has that arcade feature. Now, each temple, it looks like they have a different number of arches and pillars. This one has a ton. I'm not going to count it, but that is interesting. If this is your temple, you might want to count those and see if there's any significance. But yeah, you have that arcade feature. Okay, Guatemala City, Guatemala temple. What does that have? Oh, right on the main page for this page. There you have the arcade. It's just right along the side. Isn't that interesting? It's kind of like it's an odd thing. Like, it's like, if you didn't know about the BYU Jerusalem Center or the Independence Visitor Center, you would be like, why did they choose to do this along the side? And, you know, there might be different explanations for that, or things that you've thought about if this is your temple. But I'm getting the feeling that this is inspired by this. I think that this is inspired by this, and also the Independence Visitor Center. Friedberg, Germany. Let's go here. No, there's nothing there. Stockholm, Sweden, 1985. No, there's nothing there. Let's see, Chicago, Illinois temple. Okay, this one looks similar to the Boise and Guatemala and Dallas temples. Let's see if we can get a good side view of this. And yes, here we go. There it is, right there. There's the arcade. There's two sets of arcades. For some reason, there's this feature that kind of separates the two halves, but you do have the two arcades. Okay, so you get the idea. There's definitely something that happens in 1984 where you have temples that suddenly have these arcades. And not just like, you know, kind of like natural looking arcades. There are arcades that definitely look like this. And it is a fact, okay, that before 1984, the only temples that have Roman arches are the, where is it? The Sao Paulo, Brazil temple, and then the four original Pioneer era temples. Those are the only ones. Well, I guess including the Nauvoo temple and the Kirtland temple. So Kirtland, Nauvoo, the first four Pioneer temples after that, and then Sao Paulo, Brazil. And then suddenly, in 1984, starting with the Boise temple, you have these really long, very visible features that stand out of these arcades that run along the side of the temple. And then as you go, it starts to kind of be a little bit mixed. You have, let me see if I can find one of the small temples. From what I can tell, the small temples and my temple, the Oklahoma City temple, is part of this series. They, as far as I have seen so far, they do not have any arches. So there's a lot of these small temples, but they don't have arches. However, as you go on through time, and you look at some of these larger temples, let's see if this one has any. Let's look at the side. It doesn't seem like this one does. This is the Cedar City Temple. Let's just look at a few more, and then we'll wrap up. Concepcion, Chile Temple. Yep, this one has a really big, prominent arch in the front, and then up on the steeple, both on this level and then this top level right here. Let's see. Barranquilla, Colombia. Yep. And the portico, look, the portico to this one is kind of similar to the Nauvoo Temple. Has this these 3 Roman arches, and then you have the hollow steeple at the top with the Roman arch. Fortaleza, Brazil. Let's look at that. Yep. Has Roman arches right here, and then up here as well at the top of the steeple. Lisbon, Portugal. This is where my mom is from. This one, no. It looks like this one is just square. Yeah, this one is just square. Pocatello. Let's not do Pocatello. Let's look at Yigo, Guam. No, that one's square. What about Abidjan, Ivory Coast Temple? Nope, this one's square too. This one is interesting because this is a newer temple, obviously, and it doesn't so much have the square inside of a square type imagery, but it has something kind of similar here, and it looks like on the windows as well, but there are no arches. Belém, Brazil. Nope, that's all square. McAllen, Texas. Yep, McAllen. Okay, this one has this one has a portico similar to the Nauvoo Temple, with like these 3 Roman arches, and then you have some windows here. Then you have the steeple at the top. So, whatever the case, you know, it may not be every single temple, but there's definitely been an increase in the use of Roman arches and arcades. Here's another one. Here's the Deseret Peak, Utah Temple, the 3. You always have, like, whenever it's this, you have the 3 arches, like a 3-arch arcade, and then the middle one is the biggest. I'm assuming that the symbolism there is, you know, this is like the Godhead, and then the middle one is like God the Father. So it's just interesting. It's interesting that what you see is you have arches in the beginning up until Salt Lake. After that, it's all just square, 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 with one exception with Sao Paulo. But this is after the Independence Visitor Center is built. And then in 1984, the same year that the BYU Jerusalem Center is built, suddenly you have this series of temples that have these arcades that run along the sides. And then after that point, it's kind of a toss-up. Some of the, you know, it's kind of a mix. Some of them do have Roman arches and some of them don't. Some of them have arcades and some of them don't. So it just depends. So make of that what you will, but I find it really interesting. Take a look at your local temple the next time you look at it and see if it has any arches or arcades. And that's it. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it. Leave your comments below. Let me know if your temple has arches or arcades or any interesting facts. I would love to know. Share this with anyone that finds temple architecture interesting, church symbolism interesting, and I'll talk to you guys later.